Feel like your health insurance premiums are too expensive for coverage you're not really using? Learn how you can significantly save money and find an affordable health insurance plan for your family. Welcome to Couple Money, a podcast focused on helping spouses get on the same page, dump their debt faster, and get on the path to financial freedom together. I'm your host, Elle Martinez. This podcast is brought to you by Coastal Credit Union. Coastal's mission is to help you live a better life by offering you a better way to bank. Learn how by visiting bankbetter.org. Like many families, we want affordable health insurance. Unfortunately, it's not always easy. In 2019, the average annual premium for a family was over $20,000, which is a significant chunk of money. But open enrollment can be a wonderful opportunity for you to set yourselves up for some big wins. So this year, when open enrollment comes, I want the two of you to be prepared and feel comfortable about finding the best options for you. Of course, every couple and family is different, so I'm grateful Andy Hill, the creator of Marriage, Kids, and Money, is here to chat with me about his and Nicole's process with choosing a health plan. We're going to compare notes on how each of us approach finding the best health insurance plan for our families. In this episode, we're going to get into the differences between the most common options given, what to consider when deciding if a high deductible plan is right for you, and then maximizing your available health care benefits. You ready? Let's get started. Open enrollment is coming up. And for many families, this is like that one time of the year where they are dealing with a huge expense, which is healthcare, making that right decision for the upcoming year. Finding kind of that Goldilocks sweet spot of enough coverage and not paying too much. So I appreciate you coming and chatting with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've both kind of had similar experiences where we had to make a change with our health insurance plan, because I don't know about you, but it felt like, and it still does, plans go up every year with the premiums. The coverage doesn't seem to change. If it does, it almost seems like it's going down. When you have two kids, it can eat up a chunk of your budget. So how do you deal with it? How did that conversation open up with you and Nicole about making that switch?
I'll start off when I was a full-time employee, because there's some people who are in that camp, and then other folks who are entrepreneurs too. But when I was a full-time employee, I worked for a company and they had great benefits. They really did. And one time, at one point, I think this was maybe 2017, something like that, I was on this super exciting financial independence plan. Like, what can I do to decrease my expenses for things that don't bring me that much more joy, and then increase my spending on fun things, vacations and kids activities, the things that we deem fun in our family. And one of the areas that I was on a hunt for was, why is insurance so expensive? So I looked at home insurance, I looked at our umbrella policy, I looked at auto, things like that. And we found ways to bring those down and still had similar coverage. And then another area I wanted to look at was health insurance. So at work, I looked at a high deductible plan, and then I looked at what I had. And to switch over to the high deductible plan, we'd save around $300 a month. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, okay, well, that seems like a lot of money. Essentially, our premium would go to zero if we went to the high deductible plan. That's based on my company. They had a really really
that's a fantastic
benefits.
plan.
Absolutely. So we made that switch knowing that our deductible would be a lot higher. Luckily enough, during that time frame, we had a healthy history, and it ended up being a good bet for us. So that's what I did as an employee. And then when I moved over to the entrepreneur world, I again new frontier. I again wanted to look for a high deductible plan just because it worked well for us. And that's where our search began at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. We're kind of in the same boat. My husband has a 9 to 5, and then I'm self-employed. So we were having these conversations. His company had some pretty good plans and the premiums were competitive, not as great as yours.
Yeah.
But we were noticing we had the family premium plan for a few years. And then the price went up, so we dropped to the family basic because like you, and we're grateful for this, we're relatively healthy. The only time we were visiting the doctor was for the annual visits for the kids, annual visits for us. And so it kept rising, and it got to the point where the premiums, even with his discount, was approaching our mortgage payment.
Yeah.
And it was insane. And then we heard about the high deductible plan. They started offering it. We didn't take it the first year because just the name itself kind of scared us with
for sure. Yeah.
high deductible. Like, am I on the hook for how much?
High cost plan. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've been noticing the last few years, even though, yes, it is, you're on the hook for a larger amount, it's not as big of a leap as you may think. So definitely want to run the numbers with that. And like you, we are saving like $300. I think now the difference is like $400 a month.
That's great.
And of course, there's so many different ways you can use that money. And you have that typically is offered with a high deductible plan and HSA, which is kind of what we've been doing with that money saved. Yeah. So I want to talk to you about what attracted you to that option of the high deductible plan and the HSA.
Sure. And it's funny because I was just thinking about, the parents that are going from pre-K to their kids being in school full time and then having that money now, like saying, making that decision, well, what are we going to do with this extra money? It's kind of like your health insurance decision, right? You save that $400 and you're like, okay, well, we could use that to live on or have more fun with, or we could do something to save for that rainy day because that might happen. That's kind of what the HSA is. You put away that money for a rainy day, or if you need that to pay that deductible, but there's tax advantages to it. So in my situation at my company, they actually didn't offer an HSA, but I had a high deductible plan. So I was able to go out of my company and get an HSA, and I did it through Lively. With that, I would pay into the plan post-tax, as opposed to if you had a plan with your company, you'd pay in pre-tax. So it was a little bit backwards, but it still really worked out for us. And we've ended up saving and haven't had to tap it really at all.
That's great.
We've ended up saving about $15,000 in there over the past couple of years, and enough to cover the deductible if we really had something bad happen. And that's the point. Yeah.
And I do want to point that out for those that are considering like what option is good for me. HSA, health savings account. It sounds like a flexible spending account in that you can take, if you have it through your employer, your pre-tax dollars, which lowers your taxable income. So that's a win. And then you can use that for expenses. But the difference is with the flexible spending plan, that's what you have to do. You have to spend it every year or you lose that money. What attracted us, and probably you, is if you don't need it, and that's what we're hoping for, you can roll that over, you keep that money. And another thing that I found fascinating with an HSA is, yes, you want to cover that deductible that should you to need it, you have that money saved. But if you already have that saved in that savings account, you can actually start investing as you increase. So for families that are relatively healthy, this can be an incredible option for saving money for future expenses, whether that's immediately while your kids are young or while they're growing up, if it's a health-related expense, or when it comes time to retirement, you can take it out tax-free. So I think HSA, provided that, it makes sense number-wise, which we'll probably get into a little bit more, can be an incredible way to go. So you can use it now, or you can save and invest some of it, which can improve the growth that you can't just put it in a regular savings account.
And one stealth thing about that too, after 65, you can take it out penalty free, even if you don't use it for healthcare expenses. You can use it for whatever you want, retirement at that point. If you are lucky enough to have a healthy 30s, 40s, 50s into your 60s, and you haven't had to use that money, it can be like a little stealth retirement savings account too.
Yeah. So I don't think we give enough attention to like these tax benefit accounts, but it can really add up when you combine it, because the immediate benefit is your taxable income goes down, which is fantastic. And then later, if you need to use it, you can take that out tax-free. So Andy, I want to chat with you about this. Yeah. You're now in this new frontier.
What?
2020 is not going the way anybody
No.
expected. There's a lot of things everyone's trying to figure out, and healthcare being so important. How are you and Nicole having these discussions? What's been on your mind going forward about what's the best option for your family?
For sure. Yeah. So before I made the leap to entrepreneurship in January, I had gone on healthcare.gov, through the Affordable Care Act, and found a policy that was very similar to what I had with my full-time job, high deductible plan. It was around $1,200 a month. So this was quite a big jump from zero to $1,200.
Yes.
But I knew before I made the leap, I'm like, I want to have the same protection that I have through my job with my new venture. So we got that coverage. And Nicole has been in a part-time working situation. She's considering going back full-time. So that might change our healthcare situation come this fall or early next year. But for now, I've been covering it with my, business income. It can be a deductible for my business income because I have a S Corp. So it's a benefit for me as an employee of my company. So yeah, it's worked out pretty well. And if my income continues to go down as it has, there are subsidies through ACA that can help you save a little bit of money too. So if the downward trend of my income, as it has been over the summer, continues to go down that way, I'll be able to save a little bit of money on the health insurance heading into my tax season next year too. So that's what we've been doing.
I appreciate that because, all of us are in a state of flux. I'm glad I have certain contracts, and then you just see this every month. You're like, what's coming next quarter? I have no idea. But it's about those conversations we have in the family about health insurance, those big expenses to make the best decision. We can't give specific information about what's the best health plan for you. But I wanted you to see and hear from us, like, here's what we're considering, here's why we chose this and why it's working for us. So if you guys are relatively healthy, you're not having, for example, a lot of doctor's appointments, you don't have medical expenses like equipment or prescriptions, then you may want to look at a high deductible plan. That could offset some of that money. Nowadays, we need to free up that space in our budget for options. This segment is brought to you by Coastal Credit Union. If you want to live better, you got to bank better. Find out how at bankbetter.org. Before we wrap up, I want to focus on a few key takeaways I got from speaking with Andy and preparing this episode. The first is invest the time in choosing your healthcare plan. Healthcare can be expensive, but simply going with the cheapest option can hurt you in several ways. It's going to take a little bit of effort, but spending the time to run the numbers and review how you actually use your health insurance can help you find the right coverage at a more affordable price. The second is high deductible health plans aren't for everyone. We have a high deductible plan, and so far we love it, and many in the financial independence space also have these accounts, but that doesn't mean it's the best option for you. You have to review your family's particular needs to make sure that you're coming ahead with whatever health insurance plan you have. And that ties into the last takeaway, which is use the tax advantage accounts to maximize your money. So let's say you can't do a high deductible health plan. You can still come out ahead by using tax advantage accounts like a flexible spending account to offset some of your healthcare costs. And I know we're just getting this conversation started, so if you want to discuss this more, please come chat with us on Facebook in the Thriving Families group. It's a free and private group where we support one another with our financial and family goals. Just go to couplemoney.com/FB. We'd love to see you there. Special thanks to Andy for being a part of this episode. If you want to learn more about him or get tips on paying your mortgage off faster, please visit Marriage, Kids, and Money. And if you want to work on staying on top of your money, including your healthcare, I'll have the resources in the show notes over at Couple Money. Next week on the podcast, we're continuing our series with open enrollment. While health insurance is one of those major decisions, there are still other benefits that you can maximize. Find out how to weigh the pros and cons of each and make the most out of your benefits. So if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss out on that episode. We're on iTunes, Radio Public, and Spotify. Our theme song is from Gentle Regime. Additional music by Lee Rosevere and artists from Audio. Finally, and most importantly, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you not only listening to your favorite episodes, but sharing them with your friends and chatting with me on social media and on email about what you're tackling together. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care.